All right, so we're going to cover today how to upload new software for the 2020 monitor, which is really critical here in the 2016 year. Precision planning is changing the way the data is getting recorded into the memory, and kind of a pretty substantial update that is absolutely a necessity to do this year. So really important that everybody downloads this software, and I'm going to walk through how to do this, and also because they are changing the way they're updating or writing into the memory, we have to remove all of the data off of the 2020 monitor. So I'm going to talk about that, how to get the software from the website and put it onto 2020 and get it all put on there. So first of all, we're going to go to the Precision Planning website, which is www.precisionplanning.com, and we're going to go to support. And on the support page, we're going to scroll down to SeedSense. And on this page, you'll see software updates, and you'll see Gen 1 2020 and Gen 2 2020. So basically how you know which monitor you have is a Gen 2 monitor has the three ports on the back with a video out on the back, and it has a push button. And that's a Gen 2 monitor. A Gen 1 monitor only has two ports on the side, nothing on the back. And basically the Gen 2 monitors are the last couple of years, and everything that's running the Delta Force V drive. So basically, if you need both of them because you have both monitors, go ahead and download them both, put them on the USB drive, and the monitor will detect which one it needs. But if you know you only need one, then just do the one you need. Alright, so we are going to go ahead and click on this double click on the Gen 2 monitor for our update today. But again, if you need Gen 1, go ahead and do it, same procedure. The boot software over here on the side is more for, and it kind of describes it here, if your screen's ever frozen up, then you can download this software and it'll basically unfreeze it. So we're going to go ahead and double click, and depending on what browser you have is where this goes from there. And that I'm not going to get into because there's so many different web browsers and operating systems out there, but every one of them's a little bit different. But wherever those downloads go to, you'll go ahead and find it at this point. On mine, it's right up here in the right corner. So we're going to go ahead and move that software download that we just got off the internet over to our USB drive. And again, depending on what operating system and web browser you have, that's all a little bit different, but just know that it's got to get put on to a USB drive. It's moving it over there now. Okay, so it's there. And we will go ahead and tell the computer to eject that USB. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put the USB drive into the side of the 2020 monitor. And then we're going to push on the setup button, and we're going to go to data. And the first step that we need to do before we do a software update this time, and only this time, in the future you will not have to delete anything off the monitor, but this particular time we have to clear all the data from fields off of the monitor. So it's not going, we don't need to remove like our setup of the planter or GPS settings or anything like that. It's just the data inside of the fields we need to delete off. And so the first thing that we need to do is determine whether you want that data stored on a device to where we can bring it back into the monitor if you feel like you need it down the road, or basically if it's on FieldView already, then that's where it really needs to be, and we don't need it in the 2020 monitor anymore. So inside of FieldView, we are going to update this here in just a second, but depending on what version of FieldView you have, you need to either go to Tools or go to Settings depending on which one you have for version. But we're going to go to Tools on this older one and Data Manager. And if we go to 2015, I'm gonna see my data on the fields that I planted last year, or 2014. Anyway, if the data is there, then I'm okay to go ahead and delete it. If you feel like it's not on an iPad, you still need it in the 2020 monitor, then what you first need to do is export it and go to Field Map Data and hit Transfer All, and it'll transfer everything over to your USB. So that when we delete it here, it's at least still on your USB. Okay, so if it needs to be transferred to a USB drive device, go ahead and hit Transfer All. And if not, such as my case, it's already on the iPad, we don't need it on the monitor anymore, we're going to go to Delete, and we're going to delete Field Map Data. And we're going to go ahead and delete all. And you'll see the field that your current active field, so the field that it's currently going to be planting in, that data is still going to show under the data tab. You basically won't be able to remove that. So now we're just going to clarify that the data is deleted. If we go to Field Map Data, it should only show the active field that we are currently in. Everything else should be deleted. Old Field Map Data, everything should be deleted. So at this point in time, we can back out to the point where we see software update. So under the data tab and then software update, it'll bring up all of the software updates that are on that USB drive and ask you which one you want. So we're going to want the 16.2.1, it's the latest update, and we're going to hit enter, and it'll guide us from here what we need to do. So it's putting the software update onto the monitor, and in here in just a minute it'll say that it has it on there and that we need to pull the USB out and tell it okay that we have, and it'll cycle the power. So we'll go ahead and pull the USB out, hit OK, and it will cycle the power and turn itself back on. Alright, the monitor's turned back on after it recycled the power, and we're just going to see this message that says that the software update was completed. We're going to hit OK. And what I found is most of the time it says this internal storage could not be updated, and that we need to back up field data to external device, delete the data from the 2020 and power cycle. So we're going to hit OK on that. So once you make sure the data is deleted, you need to stick the USB back into the monitor and then cycle the power off and back on with the USB in, and it helps do this update with the memory on the USB. And basically it'll take a little while to create that memory change in there. So while it's doing that, I want to talk about Field View and how we need to make sure Field View is updated. So basically go to the App Store on the iPad, and you scroll through your App Store updates. So on the bottom you'll see your updates, and scroll through there until you find Field View. And on my iPad, I scroll all the way through my list and Field View isn't there. And what that means is that iPad itself needs to update its software before we can get the latest Field View software updated. So what we need to do, if that is the case, then you need to go to your settings and then General and then Software Update. And if there's a 1 there, if there's a little numbered 1, that means that we have to do an update on the iPad. And we just hit install now, and it's going to go through its process of updating the iPad, and once it's updated, then we go back to the App Store, and then we can update the actual app, Field View. Alright, so now our power is cycled up, and because we're not plugged into the monitor, into the planter, it's saying that we don't have communications with the modules, but if we were to push setup right now, it should show our software version. Didn't give us any other messages, so we are up to date. At this point, what I'd like you to do is push the Diagnose tab, and if you're plugged into your planter, you should see everything green on this page. And the next step that I'd like you to do is to go into either Delta Force or V-Drive or Air Force or ROFO or whatever you have, but for example Delta Force, and then you do a health check and go through and do these different checks, especially like an applied force check or advanced applied force, and it'll give you instructions what to do there. But before you go to the field, do those checks so that you make sure everything's up to date, everything's talking, everything's working, and it's not last minute.